This is a very special slide night that you are going to see, and it is the result of, I tend to say, Martin, I think it's accurate to say many years of good collaboration.
Yeah, since 2011.
2011, perfect. Many years of collaboration between ANU, College of Arts and Social Sciences, and the NFSA, various sections of the NFSA. For me, this is like coming home. It's in my second home after Europe. Here, my second Magic Lantern presentation, and I'll never forget the first time I ever saw a reenactment, a performance. We'll see. We'll discuss it.
Will In the house of too much trouble lived a lonely little boy, always longing for a playmate, always eager for a toy. But you see, 'twas too much bother, sister said, and daddy too. And we must not worry Mama, for she had other things to do. In the house of too much trouble, little boys were in the way. No one ever seemed to reason that a boy must sometimes play. Soon his baby woes and worries left their trace upon his brow. In the house of too much trouble, there are quiet moments now. In the house of too much trouble, anguish stamps the mother's brow, and she prays, God spare my darling, every wish she'll grant him now. But a faint voice whispers, Mama, won't the angels let me play? When they take me up to heaven, will I still be in the way? In the house of too much trouble, little boys were in the way. No one ever seemed to reason that a boy must sometimes play. Soon his baby woes and worries left their trace upon his brow. In the house of too much trouble, there's a baby sleeping now. And the dawn is breaking, sweetheart, you must not sigh. Bluebird, my heart is breaking, I must now say goodbye. Hear how the bugle's calling, calling to each brave heart. Sweetheart, your tears are falling, Bluebird, we two must part. Goodbye, my bluebird, farewell to you. One last fond look to you, your eyes so blue. Mid campfires gleaming, mid shot and shell, I will be dreaming of my own Bluebell. Bluebell, they are returning, each greets a sweetheart true. Bluebell, my heart is yearning, never a one greets you. Sadly they tell a story, 'Twas about the time of Christmas, and many years ago, when the sky was black with froth and wrack, and the earth was white with snow, when loudly rang the tumult of winds and waves at strife, in her home by the sea, with her child on her knee, sat Harry Conquest's wife. And he was on the waters, she knew not where, for never a lip could tell of the ship to lighten her heart's despair, and her child was dying. The pulse in the tiny wrist was almost still, and the brow was chill, and the pale as the white sea's mist. Jane Conquest's heart was hopeless. She could only weep and pray that the shepherd mild would take the child painlessly away. The night grew deeper and deeper, and the storm had a stronger will, and buried in deep and dreamless sleep lay the hamlet under the hill. And the fire was dead on the hearthstone within Jane Conquest's room, and still she sat with her child on her knee at prayer amid the gloom, when, borne above the tempest, a sound fell upon her ear, thrilling her through, for well she knew 'twas a cry of mortal fear. And a light leapt in at the lattice, suddenly swift and red, crimsoning all the cottage wall and the floor and the roof overhead. It shone with a radiant glory upon the face of the dying child, like a fair first ray of the shadowless day of the land of the undefiled. And it lit upon the mother's features with a glow so strange and new, that the white despair that had gathered there seemed changed to hope's own hue. For one brief moment, heedless of the child upon her knee, with the frenzied start of a frightened heart, up to her feet rose she, and through the quaint and old casement she looked upon the sea. Thank God that the sight she saw that night so rare a sight should be. Hemmed in by hungry billows whose madness foamed at lip, half a mile from the shore, or hardly more, she saw a gallant ship. A flame from deck to topmast, a flame from stern to stem. There seemed no speck upon the wreck where the fierce fire did not burn. And the night was like a sunset, and the sea like a sea of blood. And the rocks and the shore were bathed all o'er as by some gory flood. She looked, and she looked, till the terror crept cold through every limb. Her breath came quick, and her heart turned sick, and her sight grew dizzy and dim. And her lips had lost their utterance. Though she strove, she could not speak, for her feeling found no channel of sound in prayer, or sob, or shriek. Silent, she stood all rigid, with her child to her bosom pressed, like a woman of stone, with stiff arms thrown and a stone babe at breast. Till once more the cry of anguish thrilled through the tempest strife, and stirred again in her heart, and braved the acting, thinking life, and the light of inspiration leapt to her brightened eye, and on her lip and brow was written now a purpose pure and high. Swiftly she turned, and softly she crossed the chamber floor, and faltering not in his little cot, she laid the child she bore. And then with a holy impulse she sank to her knees, and made a lowly prayer in the silence there. And this was the prayer she prayed. Thou badest me love and cherish the child thou gavest me, and I have kept thy word, nor stepped aside from following thee. And lo, my boy is dying, and vain is all my care, and my burden's weight is very great, yea, greater than I can bear. And oh, thou know'st what peril doth threat these poor men's lives. I, a lone woman, most weak and human, plead for their waiting wives. Thou wilt not let them perish. Up, up in thy strength, and save from the scorching breath of this terrible death on the cruel winter wave. Take thou my boy and watch him. No care is like to thine, and let thy power in this perilous hour supply what lack is mine. Aye, pray, good woman, Send up prayer with further from your breast, for while your child, your suffering child, yields to unquiet rest, your husband too, amidst his toil, prays on that scorching deck, that heaven will save his comrades brave from sea and burning wreck. And so her prayer she ended, and rising to her feet, turned one fond look to that silent nook where the child's faint pulses beat, and there with softest footsteps retrod the chamber floor, and noiselessly groped for the latch, and oped and crossed the cottage door. The snow lay deep and drifted as far as sight could reach, save where alone the dank weed strewn mapped out the sloping beach. But whether 'twas land or ocean, or rock or sand or snow, or sky overhead, on all was shed the same fierce fatal glow. Still through the tempest bravely Jane Conquest fought her way, by snowy deep and slippery steep, to where the old church lay. And she gained it, pale and breathless and weary and sore and faint, but with soul possessed with the strength and zest and ardour of a saint. Stood, silent and weird and lonely amid its countless graves, the old grey church on its tall rock perch, secure from treacherous waves, and beneath its sacred shadow lay the hamlet, safe and still. For however the sea and the wind might be, 'twas quiet under the hill. Jane Conquest reached the churchyard and stood by the old church door, but the oak was tough and had bolts enough, and her strength was frail and poor. So she crept through a narrow window and climbed the belfry stair, and grasped the rope, sole cord of hope, for the mariners in despair. And the wild wind helped her bravely, and she wrought it with an earnest will, and the clamorous bell spake out right well to the hamlet under the hill. And it roused the slumbering fishes, nor its warning task gave over, till 100 fleet and eager feet were hurrying to the shore, and it ceased its ringing, for the woman's work was done, and many a boat that was now afloat showed man's work was begun. And the lifeboat midst the breakers, with a brave and gallant few, overcame each cheek and reached the wreck and saved the hapless crew. But the ringer in the belfry lay motionless and cold, with the cord of hope, the church bell rope, still in her frozen hold. Saved from the wreck with feeble step, his strength well nigh outspent, with weary pace and pallid face, with clothes all scorched and rent, poor Harry Conquest seeks his home and gains the cottage door. But no light nor faces bright to welcome him once more. The fire is dead upon the hearth, gloom reigns on every side, and all is chill and drear and still, save for the roaring tide. Within the silent darkened room trembling he gazes round, and then with the sense of dread suspense sinks fainting on the ground. Meanwhile the sexton, curious, has climbed the belfry stair, and oh the fright when cold and white he finds Jane lying there. With kindly aid the old man leads the wanderer home again, the home she left with heart bereft of hope and wrung with pain. With feeble hand the latch is raised, and by the lantern light, to their amaze, attracts the gaze of an unexpected sight. Upon the ground, exhausted, rests with face all pale and wan, with sailor's dress, in deep distress, a faint and haggard man. 'Tis Harry Conquest, long time mourned, saved in that fearful hour by his wife's brave deed, and trust in need in heaven's all gracious power. But soft, the mother's joy is brief. The child lies in its bed, the child she had left of hope bereft. 'Twas dying. Is she dead? But who shall tell heaven's marvellous love to those who do its will? The suffering boy, her darling boy, whose Jane had left so ill, is found within its little cot, in quiet slumber laid, and a peaceful smile upon his lips the while, and the wasting sickness stayed. And this is the Christmas story that still the children tell, of the fearful sight that winter night, and the ringing of the bell. Last night as I lay sleeping, there came a dream so fair. I stood in old Jerusalem, beside the temple there. I heard the children singing, and ever as they sang, methought the voice of angels from heaven answering. Methought the voice of angels from heaven in answer rang. Jerusalem, And then methought my dream was changed, the streets no longer rang. Hushed with the glad hosannas, the children little sang. And then sun grew dark with mystery, the morn was cold and chill. At the shadow of a cross arose upon a lonely hill, and the shadow of a cross arose upon a lonely hill. The scene was changed, new earth there seemed to be. I saw the holy city beside the tideless sea. The light of God was on its streets, the gates were open wide, and all who would might enter, and no one was denied. No need of moon or stars by night, or sun to shine by day. It was the new Jerusalem that would not pass away. It was the new Jerusalem that would not pass away. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, sing, for the night is come. Hosanna in the highest.